Hello, my name is Susana, and I'm going to summarize Unit 6, which is Assessing Language Learning. First of all, I want to tell you what I always say to my students: keep calm, it's just an English test. This is one of the things that they're going to do while they are at school. They're going to do exercises, they're going to do listenings, they're going to do projects, but one of the things they have to do are tests. Right? And this is, as I said, important, but they have to get used to doing it, but in a normal way. Let's talk about it. One of the things we have to take into account is that when we assess, when we make tests to our students, we have positive and negative aspects. Positive aspects can give us a result, and also to the students, this is one of the positive things. They know if they've got an A, a B, right? If they've got a very good, or if they've got an 8, whatever they have a result. Another thing is that we can give appropriate feedback to diagnose the problems they have, their weaknesses and strengths. When we have that information as teachers, we can change, or we can do something so we can improve it, or maybe we need to improve something. Now let's talk about the negative aspects. When we talk about negative aspects, we can talk about one of them, which is that most of the times assessment is not about the learning process. Most of the times assessment is about the results of our students. And we need to take into account that for teachers and for students, the process is more important than the result. Another thing is that sometimes teachers do not rearrange the objectives or the teaching procedure, right? When we find a problem, we need to change something so everything can be done in the right way. If we don't change it, students are going to do it in the wrong way. In the third point about negative aspects, we need to talk about the situation in which we interpret students' results with reference to other students. So we are comparing some students to another, and we have to take into account that every student is individual and everyone has individual learning objectives and different personal circumstances. And this point is a very important one. The last one is that students, or some of them, might feel that they don't have an active role in the assessment process. So this is a very important thing, because maybe they can they can have an active role, and we can change this. Let's continue. Before doing a test, we need to plan it. We need to design and think about it, right? We need to take time and think about it. And we need to take into account different things. First of all, point number 1, the contents. Vocabulary, grammar, pronunciation. In this case, we need to know if we're going to assess vocabulary, grammar, pronunciation, or any other thing. We have to be sure about it. Second one, when. We need to take into account if we're going to assess once a week, every day, every month, and our students have to know this information so they can be organized. Number 3, how. What materials are we going to use? What activities are we going to practice with our students? 4, the place. The place is also a very important thing, because we need to know the classroom arrangement, the time that we need, so the time that we are allowed to use the classroom to do an assessment. And finally, the correction criteria. We need to explain, and our students need to know the correction criteria. This is very important, and we need to know exactly how this assessment is going to take place. We as teachers and also students. But now we need to ask, what is a good test? For doing a good test, we need to take into account different things. One of them could be validity. If we're talking about vocabulary, we need to reflect that skill that we are dealing with. We can do it from a different thing. If we're talking about vocabulary and we want to assess vocabulary, we can't assess grammar or verbs, right? The second one is transparency. The scoring system, should be very clear, and our students need to see it so they can know every question, how many points is going to be, and if they have opportunities or if they can spend more time in one exercise or in another one. Feasibility is that the test should be factible for both teachers and learners, so they have to be in the same level, on a good level. Reliability, the test should produce the same results on different occasions, which means that if we do one test in a different occasion, the results should be the same. And discrimination, that it means that we need to offer the possibility to distinguish between good, average, and bad performance. So our students know if they've been done it in a good way, or if they can improve, or if they need to study more. When we do an assessment, when we do a test, we can do it from different things. One of them is oral skills. How to assess oral skills? We can do it in two different ways. We can do it in an informal assessment or in a formal assessment. If we do it in the first one, it could be easier for us because we can avoid the difficulties of organizing oral examinations, and also one of the main things is that students can feel motivated. If we want to deal with formal assessment, we need to take into account different things. How long is the test going to be? Is it going to last an hour? Just 5 minutes? When is the test going to be? Where is the test going to be? Are we going to organize it in pairs, groups, individually? What activities will we include? And finally, the criteria of performance. Is the test reliable? So before assess oral skills, we need to take into account all these things if we want to do a formal assessment. As you can see right here in this slide, we can assess oral presentations, and as you can see, we have advantages and disadvantages. We can talk, for example, that it is easy to set up, or disadvantages that it can be threatening for students. Another advantage is that it allows students some creativity. And for example, another disadvantage is that it is not very reliable. So if we have into account all this, we can make a good assess on oral presentation. Another thing we can assess in oral classes is discussion, debates about short tests. The advantages and disadvantages is something that the teacher has to take into account before doing it. One advantage is that it is easy to check, and another disadvantage is that it assesses speaking and reading skills, right? Another one is that some students might find it a bit threatening and avoid taking part into the discussion. So we need to take into account depending on the students we have in the class. Also, we can assess discussion about controversial topic. The advantages and disadvantages, as I told you before, have to be taken into account by the teacher. Another one is discussion of a book or reading. If we talk about the advantages, we can say that we just need part of the class time to carry out these activities, so we don't need time or just a long time to do it. And disadvantages, one of them could be that if we do this, it is difficult to make sure all students have really read the book and to make all the students participate. So we have to take into account all this. Also, maybe shy students will avoid participate. Another skill we can assess is reading aloud. The advantages of reading aloud is that it is easy to set up. It is an easy way to assess reading fluency and pronunciation, and it is very reliable. But we also have to take into consideration the disadvantages, because we can find that this is difficult to assess a whole class, and you will be able to see it. We cannot assess accuracy, fluency, interaction, coherence, etc. And finally, the results might be negative and not very representative. Another one, which is one of my favorites, is the role play. When we talk about role play, it has many advantages because we can have pairs or small groups to assess it, and this is very quick, or a very quick way to assess, and this is very realistic and very reliable. Disadvantages: well, this is difficult to assess a whole class. Sometimes students repeat previously memorized sentences and structures, and this is not very reliable on shy students, so we have to take into account all these things. Another one, which is also used in different examinations, such as Cambridge one, is the picture description. If we talk about advantages, we have to say that this is very easy and quick to set up, and it is quite objective. And if we talk about the disadvantages, we have to say different ones. For example, one of them could be that we can have different results depending on the picture we choose. So we need to choose pictures on the same difficulty level. Now we're going to talk about quality aspects when assessing oral production, which are very, very important. We need to take into account the range, lexical and semantic and grammatical richness and complexity, accuracy of our students. I mean, when they use or when they have a correct use of grammar or lexical proficiency, fluency, when we find maintenance of communication process, interaction, when they make turns talking, checking understanding, and coherence, the use of connector, organization, etc. So we need to know this when we have an assessment of oral production. How can we assess written works? We have two essential things that we need to bear in mind: the length and the degree of control. When we talk about the length, it's that at the beginning we start with works at sentence level before moving to more elaborate text. So we need to do it little by little. And the second one is the degree of control. Depending on students' age and level, they can grade freely, or sometimes they can need some instructions that the teacher can give them so they can do it in a proper way. What can we say about assessment? We can make some suggestions to make positive and fair, which is something really important, assessment. Always we need to mark positively with our students, to our students. We have to design from the beginning a correction criteria system. Please don't mark every single mistake so we can have our students motivated. And also we can design a correction code and our students can know them. And also this could be very motivated for them. Finally, we need to know about how to assess receptive skills. And in this case, we're talking about listening and reading. We need to choose a clear criteria system, which is something really similar from the things we've been talking up to now. We need to assess in a motivating way. We need to underline our students' strengths, not our students' mistakes. We have to focus on the most relevant mistakes, not in all of them. And we also use grids to organize the information we get from the test. Well, so I have finished with the presentation. Thank you for your attention. Do you have any questions? No? Well, that's great. Bye.